I gotta tell you, I was with the greatest guy last night. We had such a good time. I met him at this bar, and he picked me up so fast, and the hotel was right across the street, and we had the best. It was the best I think I've had in a week. We had so much fun.
I'm just kind of concerned right now because it seems like you had the same story last week.
Well,
and
yeah.
a few months ago, it was basically the same thing.
Uh-huh.
And I'm wondering if you're protecting yourself.
I've got the greatest life. The greatest life. I have so much fun.
Yeah, and I can see that you really enjoy your sexuality, but at the same time, are you doing something to protect yourself?
What do you mean?
Well, have you thought about if you got pregnant or if you got HIV, how your life would change? I know that, you really like your sexuality, and I respect that, but I was just wondering how you'd feel if something like that would happen.
I'm not going to get HIV, okay? I think people are totally blowing it out of proportion, and, it's just not going to happen. And if it does, I'll deal with it if it happens, I'm not going to worry about it. You can't live your life in fear, and I'm just not going to live my life that way. I'm going to have a good time while I'm alive and just go for it.
It's really hard for me to hear this. I'm really concerned about your well-being. And
what are you so worried about? I'm having a good time.
Well,
it's my life.
Yeah.
I think that I should be able to live it however I want to, and if I want to, have multiple partners and sex with different people any night of the week, I think I'm entitled to that.
And I understand that, yeah. And I'm just wondering how your being with different partners is playing out with your other issues that we've been talking about, the abandonment issues with your father.
I don't think that has anything to do with it.
How was it to be in the session for you?
Well, it was different. I do feel like I didn't really give him much time to talk. But as you just said that, like what you just said, Richard, that you wanted to tell me that you cared, I think that would have made a difference. And you might have said that, but I didn't hear you. Mm-hmm. And I think that might have been something. I don't think I would have taken it as you imposing your values on me, because I didn't feel like you were at all. And I think it might have been in that instance, I just needed to hear somebody say that they cared about me and they worried about me.
Would any of you have any ethical issue about that? About talking about safe sex? About talking about unwanted pregnancies? About talking about HIV? What do you think?
I wouldn't.
None of you would.
Definitely not for myself in particular, because that's also a cultural value. Sexual education and sexuality in general is something a lot of times taboo. Definitely I would see this situation as perhaps an opportunity to do some educating.
So you could have an agenda here. An agenda would be to get the client, at least, to think about the consequences of her behavior in terms of unwanted pregnancy or diseases.
But I think it would be important to make sure and ask her, I want to give you some information. Mm-hmm. Is it okay if I do? Because I
Good
think
point.
Just totally just going, and telling her without, first of all, I don't think she'd listen. And second of all, I think it's important to engage her in wanting to gain this information.
An important question for me is to the client, how come you're telling me all this? If I say that, I have to wait and see, okay, now what are you going to tell me? And based on what you tell me, gives me direction of where to go with you. I'm very, how come you're talking about this? What do you want from me in this session by telling me this? Okay, very key question that gives us guidance to what direction do we go.
Would a situation like this fall under, harming self or others? Because she is having unsafe sex with multiple partners.
What do you think?
What do you think?
And then do you have an obligation at all to not, report that?
Well, if I would have said that I already knew that I had HIV and was having sex with multiple partners, then, and if my counselor didn't know the names or where these people lived, that would be, I think, more of a difficult situation for the counselor.
Mm-hmm. And the counselor doesn't know yet and has no codes that are very specific yet, and no laws that will direct us, and it's one of those issues we need to deal with.
I think this is a good example of sometimes where education is certainly important, but the key is it's not just information. You certainly have to build rapport, and you certainly have to create a climate where she's open to being educated. And it certainly won't help to preach, because maybe she well knows this, and thinks, well, it won't happen to me.